Welcome aboard Rocket Ship, the platform with the most relevant content for competitive examinations. This is Rocket Ship IAS Lab and continuing with our series on answer writing for general studies papers of civil service main examination. We take up a question that you might come across in GS paper 4. Here, please read out the question carefully. Service which is rendered without joy helps neither the servant nor the served. What this quote means to you? As a prospective civil servant. So the question starts with giving a particular, you could say, observation by Gandhiji. That is, this quote was actually made by Gandhiji. That is, it's necessary, if you could interpret it, if the work of a civil servant is of any importance, it is necessary that he should enjoy his work. This is the gist of the idea. This is the gist of the, you could say, idea that Gandhiji was making. What the question requires you? It requires you to talk about, or rather detail, what this entire quote, the idea expressed by Gandhiji, means to you. What we are doing here, we are introducing our answer with making an observation on the very nature of civil service. That is, civil service is an office of public trust, where the fate of the many depend on one person. So you can understand very well that in a country like ours, where there is a large mass of teeming mass of people who are in many senses deprived, as well as who have even in the past or even today, who have faced discriminations, etc. And all of these people, this large mass of people, reposes trust in you for the betterment of their life. So you can understand very well how important it is that you actually uphold their trust. This makes it necessary that one person, that is the civil servant, has the right orientation and motivation. It's obviously right that you would have the right orientation and motivation to serve these people, to actually uphold their trust. It is in relation to these psychological traits, that is orientation, motivation, etc., that the place of joy becomes central to the work of a civil servant. Devoid of this sense of joy, now the rather talking about the, you could say, not enjoying the work of a civil servant, devoid of this sense of joy, the civil servant will fail public trust. So you can understand very well that while you, in the first place, we have argued that civil service is an office of public trust, but at the same time we are also saying that if the civil servant does not enjoy his work, it would mean failing the public trust. A public servant enjoying his work is important for a number of reasons. Putting ourselves in position of a public servant, we can see why enjoying our entrusted task is important. So, for some moment, please try to place yourself in the shoes of a public servant, in the shoes of a civil servant. Then you would see why it's important that you enjoy your work. Why enjoying your work is important in civil services, taking up the reasons one by one. It would lead to a strive for excellence rather than resorting to bare minimum. So the point is, no one is going to actually take you to task if your service is not of the, you could say, better quality than is expected. That the regulations provide for a very average quality of service. And if you are to actually excel on the delivery of the service, on the quality of service delivery, it can happen only if you actually enjoy your work. It would often lead to a more positive attitude and resilience in the face of challenges. Again, no one is arguing that the work of a civil servant is easy. Actually, they face many pressures, many challenges in the everyday life. For example, diverse demands from all sort of people, some of them obviously negative. Moreover, they also face some resource constraint in their actual task. And when you actually enjoy your work, it would mean that you would have a positive attitude, and moreover, you would be resilient in the face of all these challenges that we have just discussed. This is often said that joy is contagious. That is, if you are joyous yourself, if you have, you could say, pleasant outlook, and in fact, feel, you could say, some sense of joy inside, you often induce other people to be actually joyous and pleasant. All of this would lead to cheerful work environment and team spirit. When the work environment is cheerful, when the boss himself is you could say pleasant, he enjoys his work, what would mean that the work environment would be cheerful, and there would be a sense of team spirit among the, you could say, all the people that who work in your, you could say, office. You would be more emotionally invested and dedicated. Emotional investment often leads to dedication, and dedication is a sine qua non. It's obviously required in the case of a civil servant. Moreover, this is some sort of reverse causation, that is, joy is often reflective of your emotional intelligence. That is, no one is going to measure your emotional intelligence. That's not, you could say, not an actual task. But when someone is, you could say, pleasant, someone has pleasant outlook, he enjoys his work, it's often a sign that that person is emotionally intelligent. Detailing on these ideas, enjoying your work is the drive for striving for excellence. Without this drive, a civil servant would look for excuses and hide behind formality. End result, the quality of service would suffer. That is all the idea that we have just discussed, that the rather than striving for excellence, if the person does not enjoy his work, what he would do, he would try to do the bare minimum that is required of him, and in that way he won't excel in the service delivery, so the quality of service delivery. Work of a civil servant is replete with challenges in face of often conflicting demands and pressures. You can understand all sort of pressures from all the directions. Enjoying your work manifests in a positive outlook on life and resilience. And this resilience makes you face these challenges mostly stoically, and even in, you could say, right stride. It is said that joy is contagious. You project happiness on those around you. Again, this is a very, very important psychological concept, that joy is generally contagious. That is, virtually whoever comes in contact with you would be similarly joyous. They would feel similar sense of happiness. So the work environment becomes cheerful and people cultivate team spirit. This sense of shared commitment, that is team spirit, makes everyone's task more bearable, and even the delivery is of better quality. That is, everyone would be like ready to help others in actually performing the task, the end goal, that is serving the people. A civil servant enjoying his work is emotionally more invested and displays commitment, a most desired value for civil services. That is, with emotional investment, it often leads to commitment, and that is necessary for the work of a civil servant. Joy is often reflective of one's emotional intelligence. Again, we are not going to argue against this point, and in fact, the two are mutually reinforcing. This is another important idea, that while joy is reflective of one's emotional intelligence, what happens when you have a positive attitude on life, you do feel pleasure in your actual work, it would in the long term, it would lead to greater sense of emotional intelligence. And if you are emotionally intelligent, you would mostly be joyous, you would feel pleasant. Emotional intelligence leads to empathy. This is also a very important idea, that emotional intelligence leads to empathy for the vast masses and a sense of concern for their well-being. So again, we are again coming back to the idea of the office of the civil servant being an office of great public trust. So essentially, when you feel a sense of empathy towards others, you would be in a position, you would rather strive to do something so that you could say make their lives better. Now, summing up, what the other idea was, if the work of a civil servant, if he started not enjoying his work, that is devoid of joy, civil servant would become a mechanical contraption, virtually a robot, lacking empathy for the vast masses he is supposed to serve with dedication. He would probably vitiate the climate, that is the work environment, with his cynicism. What happens if you do not enjoy your work? What you would start doing? You would probably spread negativity, that the work is challenging and all those sort of things. Sometimes it often leads to another, you could say, much more, you could say, negative manifestation in the form of corruption, etc. In contrast, enjoying his work, he would uplift the service delivery, motivate his team, and in the end emerge as a satisfied man who excelled in his entrusted task. So, as Gandhiji was himself talking, that it's necessary, or rather, if the civil servant enjoys his work, it's for, you could say, beneficial for him as well. That is the entire idea we are discussing here. That is, in the end, what would happen if he were to enjoy his work? He would probably excel in service delivery, he would motivate his people, and he would probably end up as a satisfied man because he excelled in the task that was entrusted in him. This is all for today. We would reassemble for the next lecture in a few days. As usual, we wish you all the best. Thank you.